Welcome to NovelBot. This is the audiobook of Rebirth of a Genius. Creator Destroyer Chapter 111 to 120. The next day the group left on the carriage. As soon as they left, Jack asked, "If you really just want to teach them how to do, you could have demonstrated at a small tier city. We would have managed to save some time. Why did we have to come this far?" Sam didn't say anything and just smiled. In a few moments the golden fist ape came from the nearby woods, with a huge leather bag on his back, and at the same time, there seemed to be some extreme movement from the woods. Within no time, tens of beasts came from the woods, carrying some type of trees. All of these are fruit trees that can aid cultivation and initiation stages, and later, they can at most supply some spiritual energy to acolytes and early-stage novices. Jack was dumbfounded as he saw all the beasts dragging and carrying these trees. Sam casually stored them all, and even the golden ape away in the divine dimension. Since this village is far and the cultivators in this area aren't too strong, they don't venture into deeper zones, and possibility of these trees which aren't much desirable existing here is high. Sam's purpose of coming here is collecting these types of trees. Even though they might not be highly useful, he can still use them to introduce the alcohol at his restaurant. So, Sam planned one thing. He will collect as many resources he can as possible to make profit out in his businesses. After storing away, Sam took out his hoverboard and at the same time let Yanwu and Sky out. Jasmine and Jack boarded them and Sam stood on his board. When he unleashed the thrust and floated, Jack spotted some words carved on the side of the board. Harbinger. He read out loud and looked at Sam. This is the name Sam gave to the board. With the high thrust, even though his altitude isn't high, it is not low either. Yanwu and Sky also flew at the same altitude as him, which is around 40 feet above the ground. This way of travel is very fast as they reach the Red Coral City in 2 days, even when they rested at nights, but the price Sam has to pay is a set of energy cells of his board, but he didn't feel the pinch. Because his cost price is high and he also gained a lot in this trip. He plucked every fruit tree he or his beast spotted on his way, and the ape planted them inside the divine dimension. He even found some wild herbs which are beneficial for novice levels. But since he didn't have much benefit for them, he just let the beasts eat them. After all, their cultivation is beneficial to himself. After they reached the vicinities of the Red Coral City, 3 of them started walking. They entered the city and after some enquiries, they went to some low-key inn. As soon as they entered their rooms, Sam let the remaining shadow mice out. He has 5 of them with him, and he left the remaining 5 with Watt to use them in the small-tier cities. Even though the 5 mice sound like the investigation might take longer, but the main thing is that mice also improved, and their ability is also enhanced. With increase in the cultivation level, the shadow mice can perform a myriad of techniques. Even though they don't have much use in battle, their control over shadows and their eavesdropping abilities are not to be trifled with. If they had any way to attack, they will make the best assassins, and Sam is even thinking of making it possible. If their cultivation is high enough, the shadow mice can even access the shadow world. And about the shadow world, that is the story for another time. Sam didn't leave the mice aimlessly. The 3 of them first went to the dining hall of the inn, and in the same way, Sam caught some news on a small local gang. He is slightly missing the vicar's guy, where he can buy the info as he liked. So, after finding a guy from the small gang, he left the shadow mice to do their work. Last time, it took him more than a month to gather all the intel, and there would definitely be a Blackwater branch here also. So, shadow mice had one thought in mind: they should get the monthly report of the branch as soon as they find out. Sam also felt a little depressed when he found out that there is no establishment known to public named Black Pond in the city. But with the shadow mice abilities, he didn't have a doubt that he can find him. And 2 days later, Sam, Jack and Jasmine. All of them are sitting in a dark room, and in front of him is a man in his 30s with some beard. He is injured considerably. He is the leader of small gang that Sam let the shadow mice investigate. "So, are you going to tell me the info I need or not?" Sam asked with a slight impatience. Just as the man was about to reject, Jack took out his black sword and immediately pierced into the other guy's shoulder. "One more rejection, you can lose a limb." The other party: "I will tell you." The man finally gave in. At first, they came normally and just asked for the info, but this guy had some loud mouth, and Jack beat him to pulp. After that, when Sam asked him again, he rejected 2 times and 3rd time led to this situation. After more than 30 minutes, the man laid lifeless on the floor, and so were the other gang members in the area. Anyway, their task is to eliminate all of them. Since Sam got all the info, he doesn't have any use for them. Now, he has an understanding on the forces of this city. Unlike Falcon Cliff City, the gangs in this city are quite scattered, and there are 10 small gangs. Along with that 10 small gangs, there are 2 big gangs which have most control over the city. He also learned that there are some officials in ties with these 2 gangs, and the 2 gangs are also said to be the rival gangs, vying to get a chance to occupy each other's territory and business. One of them is responsible for settlements, assassinations, missions, and even hiring for teaching someone a lesson. They don't even care about the protection fee, and the name of the organization is Snakehead. The other gang is related to prostitution, slave trade, and also something Sam never expected he would face in this world: drug dealing. They're called the Tigerfish. Sam found something off when they heard the names. They're just like Piranha and Kandiru. Both of them are fish names and are related to the Blackwaters branch. In Falcon Cliff City, both of them didn't have any connection to the public eye, but they didn't have a conflict either. But here, these two are fighting each other, and there is even a place that they have chosen to fight it out. They even sell tickets to that event. Sam was quite curious. He even thought of the possibility that the two gangs are making a facade to not let others find out about it, and them being a part of the Blackwater. And there is one more organization that transitions between black and white, and that is the Arena. This is an entertainment zone where the people fight for the spectators, and the fight between the Snakehead and the Tigerfish are also organized by them. But they aren't open to the general public, and timings are also closely constrained to the underground society only. So, Sam decided one thing. He will investigate slowly. He felt that there is only piece of puzzle that is missing, and if he can find this, everything will be sorted out. But he is in no hurry. He has 2 months for each city, and he can slowly collect the info and take them down. By the time he can slowly wear down the forces here, or even better, he can use the same technique he used in the Falcon Cliff City. He can target them and make use of poison. But this time, Sam has other ideas. He wants to use the underground forces to wear each other out. Previously, he only has to deal with Black Pond, so as a single entity, he can target them, but this time he has to take down remaining gangs as well. If he uses the previous method, the other gangs may go into hiding. So, he has to think of a different approach, and he has already got the rough locations of the remaining small gangs, and some contact points of the Tigerfish and the Snakehead. If he uses his shadow mice from these points, he can trace back to the headquarters of the two big shots. Before that, he has to check out this arena and determine whether it is a legal organization or not. That night, Sam went to the location of Arena alone. Tonight, there is going to be a battle between the two big gangs. He came here alone, that is because he is using the special pass of the small gang boss they killed earlier, and that pass can only allow one person. When Sam went, there is no fee because of the pass. So, he sat in a corner as he observed the ring. At the center of the team, 2 men are looking at each other, and the referee is announcing the conditions. The thing is, these big shot organizations also have some legal businesses as a facade for their members, and also their secondary source of income. Today's match has a bet of some businesses from each side. They are using this strategy to not incur most losses in an all-out war. And soon the match began. Both the candidates are novice level 4, and both of them are warriors. They are fighting tooth and nail while people are cheering to the person they bet on. At this moment, from a special spectator stand, a great mage looked at Sam, who is sitting in a corner. Why is he here? He muttered slightly. Sam might not recognize him, but the other party has seen him in the Marquee City. That is why he recognized him easily. Sam isn't exactly low profile in the city. Sam didn't know that a great mage is curious on why he came to this city. He waited until the fight is over and left the place, but 3 small shadows entered deep into the arena. 2 of them followed the 2 fighters, and the third one went to follow the referee. Sam sent the remaining 2 mice to the Count Mansion to keep a track on the officials. The info he got was that there are 2 officials supporting the 2 big organizations, each in the dark, and the gang leader he killed even mentioned that this is not a secret in the underground circle. It is just that they don't know who those 2 officials are. So, Sam decided one thing: he must deal with the 2 officials before he could get his hands on the 2 big organizations. The 2 shadow mice, which went to Count Mansion, are going to follow an official each for a whole week. If the officials are clean, then they will change the targets. This is what Sam thought out. Until then, he and Jackal slowly erode the small gangs. Midnight. In the arena, the great mage, who recognized Sam, is sitting with 2 people. Both of them are peak novices. Rank 5 artisan Sam is here. The great mage, who is a middle-aged man, said in a low voice. The expressions of the 2 people changed. He is one of the suspects behind the elimination of the Black Pond in the Falcon Cliff City. Higher up said that even though Sam might not be directly involved in the attack, there is a chance that he made the special poison that killed our people. Maybe the culprit has asked Sam to make them this item, and he didn't have any idea where the culprit is using them. After all, he is an artisan, and many people can buy things from him. And most importantly, at that time he is still a novice level 1. It is impossible for him to attack all of them at the same time. Even though the poison is involved, I think there is a great possibility that at least a novice peak level is involved in this. If possible, we can even ask him who that person is and investigate. A peak level novice said. We will observe things for now and see why is he here, and then we can decide on how to proceed. The great mage then dismissed the meeting. After the meeting dismissed, the Shadow Mouse in the dark immediately left the room. Even though he got some information, he is in no hurry to report to Sam. Sam has clearly mentioned that they have to report weekly, and also told them to gather as much info as possible. Meanwhile, Sam is sleeping in the inn. Even though he is wealthy enough to buy a house, he is not that interested this time. He has some plans to his wealth, and he also needs to stay low profile. The next day, Sam went into the woods and let the ape out. He still needs to activate the bloodline of the ape, but it would be better if he is on same level or higher level than the ape. Then he doesn't have to put much effort and risk being weak for days. He is here to practice some combat with the beasts here, and catch some beasts exclusive to this region to have taste. As for the ape, it is responsible for the search of the fruit trees and the herbs. For the next week, Sam ventured into the woods every morning. Since he was occupied with other things, he doesn't have enough time to practice his combat. Now, he has enough time. Every morning he was in the woods, and night he and Jack investigated the small gangs slowly. The previous gang leader, he is killed as the weakest among them, and his position was already taken over by someone else. But he isn't in a hurry to take them down. After dealing with the two officials, he can take these guys on as leisurely as he wants. And now all the Shadow Mice came to report to him. After hearing the report, he got some important news, and that is the arena is the Blackwaters branch in the city, and they have suspicions on him. Then only here realized the mistake of not cleaning the battlefield. He thought that the Count will make sure to clean it up after he sent the letter as Robin Hood. But now only he realized that he didn't. If not for the fact he was unconscious after the battle, he might have cleaned up himself. But Sam didn't know that it was his fault. Just after he was taken away by Jack, the great mage from the nearest city already came and took a look at the battlefield, and reported it to the higher-ups. That happened even before he wrote the letter to the Count Falcon. But Shadow Mice didn't have any evidence on whether the two big gangs are part of the Blackwater or not. As for the two mice following the two officials, the officials turned out to be clean, and didn't have any connections with the other underground forces. So, Sam sent them back and he went on with his daily routine. Today night, he has some plans, and that is to get his hands on the drug that is being supplied by the tigerfish. But since he is in suspect list of the Blackwater, he doesn't want to show his face yet. So, he sent Jack to buy some at a contact point of the tigerfish. That night, Sam took a look at the pills Jack brought back, and gave it to the ape to take a sniff, and the ape gave an utterly disgusted expression. Why did Sam do this? The ape has another ability, and that is distinguishing the herbs. But it doesn't know the qualities of the herbs and their uses. All it consents is whether the herbs and fruits are tasty or not according to its preferences, and the preference of the ape is never wrong. So, Sam said some words. From tomorrow, collect the herbs you think that are used in this pill. The ape nodded as it ate a fruit which looked like pear. Sam left the divine dimension and went into a deep thought. First, he needs to observe the effects of the drug to see what he can do with this. Sam had an idea on how to deal with the two big shot organizations. That is, even if they are the two organizations operating together discreetly under the Blackwater, the info must have been only known to the people in charge and other important members. The remaining members, though, are all in the dark. Otherwise the facade will collapse easily. So, Sam wants to use their disputes to take on each other, and before that, he needs the effects of this drug on the people to see if he can use this to his benefit. Next day, Sam went to the woods with the ape, but this time he didn't practice combat. Instead he followed the ape inside the woods. And by the evening, the ape found 6 herbs which are supposedly part of the drug. When they went back, Sam went to a drug contact point, but he didn't buy any, rather he waited for a customer. He waited till midnight and finally a young man bought some and walked away hurriedly. Sam stealthily followed him, and after an hour of walking in circles, the young man led the way to his home. When Sam secretly looked inside the home, he saw the young man feeding a pill to a crazy-looking man who seemed to be in his late 20s. After taking the pills, the crazy look was gone and was replaced with euphoria and ecstasy. He seemed to be in some kind of illusion as he muttered something about his love and a woman. Sam kept on observing, and when the drug seemed to be wearing off, the young man fed another pill, and the addict seemed to immediately fall asleep. He went back to the inn, and the next day, he similarly followed other customers, and what he knew is that the addicts themselves didn't come to buy them at all. All the people who came are the relatives of the addicts, and effects of the drug are similar to the first person he saw. For the first pill, they will feel euphoria, and the second pill seemed to make them sleep. But the herbs that the ape found weren't sufficient to cause all these effects, and there must be some kind of special ingredient. But Sam didn't find the last item in the next 2 weeks. The third report from the Shadow Mice gave him some news, and that is that the organizations are really linked together by the arena, and this news seemed to be only known by 3 people. But there is no news on the officials, and the list also narrowed down considerably. There are only few officials left who climbed their ranks up as commoners. All the officials from the noble families are clean. Even though they are corrupt, but they don't have anything to do with these organizations. In a week it would be 1 month since he came to this city, and Sam wants to gather the info as soon as possible. Then only he suddenly remembered the monthly report the mice stole in the Falcon Cliff City, and Sam immediately gave an order. Steal the humans from all 3 organizations this week. Don't hoard all of them, just steal some which are well placed or treated as important. The mice went on to their duty, and Sam is still thinking about the herb. Since he wasn't able to think of anything, he went on a stroll. Idiot. Sam scolded himself as he stood at the beach. He looked at the vast sea and scolded himself again. I am really an idiot. Why is he calling himself an idiot again and again? Because he felt that he limited his thoughts completely for the past 2 weeks. These past 2 weeks, he was filled with confusion on what type of herb that gave the drug those effects. He limited his thoughts completely to the herbs and searched the woods frantically. So, he is a little bit angry at himself. Because the herbs are the only ones which can be used in the pills, and the woods are the only source for the ingredients in the Red Coral City. The Red Coral City is a coastal city, and there are a number of resources in the sea. That might include some of the fish or any water-bound creature which produce certain toxins. Now, he has to find out what kind of creatures are there in the nearby waters, and he can find out what he can do with it. So, he went to the most prosperous sea creatures business in the city. There, he took a look at the catalog of the creatures they can catch in the nearby waters. When he saw the list, he couldn't help but smile. Just from a glance he could see which of these can be used to produce the effects of the drugs. There are no more than 3 possibilities, and it is not even that difficult to find out which of it is. Sam ordered some fish that will be good to eat and some other creatures to act as decoy, along with the creatures he suspected to be a part of it. That is because he has suspicions that this business is related to the Black Water, and he might leave some clues like before. Next day, the creatures came and Sam took the parcel to the inn and immediately entered the divine dimension. In the 2nd floor, he and the ape sat side by side, and he started keeping the herbs inside the cauldron, and took out the first beast he is suspicious of, the emerald jellyfish. The tentacles of this jellyfish have some kind of toxin that will give some illusions to the victim. He heated them all together, even though he didn't have the recipe for the drug, and don't know the right amount he has to use. He doesn't need the pill anyway. All he needs is the confirmation on which ingredients they are using, and the ape can smell if the composition is nearer to the drug. And soon, Sam performed some experiments and finally got the answer he wanted. 2 creatures are responsible for the effects. One of them is the emerald jellyfish and purple ink squid. Of the 2, the first one is responsible for the illusions, and the second one is for knocking them out. They are controlling the dosage and the proportions of the 2 toxins, in order to function like that. Sam now went into a deep thought. He wants to create a large-scale conflict between the 2 gangs, so that they will be more active, and the lower-ranked members will be at each other's throats, before the upper echelons could intervene. By the time they intervene, Sam can easily find out the 2 officials, and after they are in the bag, he will use his authority and use the count to take the gangs down, without raising the suspicions of the Black Water that he is involved. He can seal off the info that he is here with his authority, but the info will be leaked if the 2 officials are still in duty. So, Sam is now thinking on how to use these drugs, so he went into the tower's library to search on the info on the toxins. After more than a day, he found out something interesting. That night, Sam stealthily moved towards the sea and took out his hoverboard and surfed over the waters. With the thrust capacity, floating over water is not a problem at all. Sam went along the coastline, and when he reached a more secluded area filled with reefs, he took out some type of special herbal powder and dropped it over the still water. Soon a fish similar to koi floated as it gobbled on the small amounts of herbal powder that it even ignored Sam. So, an easy catch. After catching some, he went to another spot and caught another batch of fish. Sam caught a bunch of fish and went back to the inn. He entered the 2nd floor of the tower without delay and started making some preparations. Today, Sam caught 2 types of fish. First one is to make an antidote for the drug addiction, and the second one is to change the effects to his liking. After spending more than 3 days in tower, Sam was finally with a powder and a bottle of special liquid. Now, he has to find a way to get the constant supply of the drugs, and this problem is left to Jack. Jack took the small packets of powder and went to the first contact point where the drug is sold. Just like Sam, he also waited for a customer. Coincidentally, the customer is the same young man Sam followed, and Jack followed the guy. After reaching the home, when that guy is about to feed the pill, Jack suddenly spoke from behind. "Do you really want to feed him that?" Jack said in a low voice. The young man was startled and immediately grew vigilant. He released his aura, and when he was about to attack, Jack caught him and held him down. The young man was only an acolyte after all. How can be matched for Jack, who is a novice? "Do you want to talk now?" Jack said as he subdued the man. After the other party realized that he is no match for Jack at all, he immediately stopped struggling. "I am here to make a deal. I have a cure for the drug addiction, but I need you to do something for me." Jack directly came to the point. "Why should I believe you?" The young man asked a bit resentfully. Jack threw a packet of powder and said, "Mix it with some water and feed him." The young man hesitated a bit, but at the end he decided anyway, as he looked at his weak and feeble brother, who was under the attack of drug addiction. But after feeding the glass of liquid, his brother calmed down and fell asleep, but this time, he isn't like before becoming unconscious. Now, he fell asleep and his breathing and complexion turned somewhat normal. He started sweating, and some kind of purplish green substance started getting out of his pores. One dose is not enough to completely clean his system and get him out of his addiction. You need 9 more of it, but if you want it, you have to do something for me. Jack said from the side. What should I do? The young man was excited. He never wanted to feed his brother these drugs. He tried many ways to make quit, but none of them worked at all. So, all he can do is continue on feeding him by spending all his hard-earned money. Simple, all you have to do is exchange a dosage of drugs with this antidote. You can just buy it regularly like you did before in exchange. After 10 doses, you have to buy for 2 more days and give me those drugs. Is that it? The young man asked. Yes, that's it. I will come and collect the drugs myself. But why are you doing this? The young man agreed but asked Jack. Even the Count was unable to do anything. Even when some dealers were arrested, they always found a way to escape and get away. What can a novice do about it? Jack didn't reply and left with the drugs. He went back to the contact point and waited for the next customer. In this way, Jack made deal with several customers who bought the drugs, and he brought back the drugs to Sam. For the next 10 days or so, this is his only duty. Meanwhile, the 4th report from the Shadow Mice, Sam got his hands on some documents from the arena, and one of them is some rules on how Blackwater should operate, and one of the rules made him amused. The reports, the rewards and the income which should be submitted annually to the higher-ups, all of them shouldn't be in the hands of the branch in charge, and they should be stored in the secret locker of the establishment they made. When Sam read this, he wanted to thank the higher-ups of the Blackwater. They would have never guessed that there is a creature called Shadow Mouse, and that could even ransack their whole vault. Maybe they only thought of the scenario where the branch in charge might be killed, and the other party will not be getting any of the above-mentioned things. If not for the fact that the Great Mage will go berserk if the spatial rings containing the meteorite sands and the rewards and the income went missing, Sam would have got his hands on them and ran away. There might even be a chance of him being linked to the incident due to the previous suspicions. But since his main aim is to eliminate them, he has to wait until he is dealt with and take the loot after that. 1 month passed since Sam came to the Red Coral City, and he did things carefully and stayed low-key. Right now, he got some necessary info on the businesses of the arena, and particularly the income through the gambling on the fights. He was completely excited to get his hands on them, and right now, he is thinking of a way to deal with the 2 officials who has connections with Blackwater. Yes, he got the news on the 2 people in Falcon Cliff City. Sam got all the news in less than 10 days, due to the coordinated work of the 10 mice, but now, the 5 of them are taking more time. All the plans he is making to not to get suspected are only taking more time. Now, Sam is inside the inn and in front of him is a small glass container with the weird liquid he made earlier, and right now, he dropped some drugs in it and started shaking. After that, a shadow mouse appeared on the table and stored away the bottle into the spatial ring. This spatial ring is not a normal one though. It is made of the space jade, and is now acting as a collar around the mouse. Even though the shadow mice can use the spatial ring, they have to bear a high level of mental stress, but the space jade doesn't have that problem, so even when the space is little, it is still beneficial. The shadow mice are rather clever and they got their orders. That night, the whole upper echelons of the Count's city were in uproar. 2 of their staff are dead. Only the Count himself was silent because, after he confirmed that the deaths of the 2 officials, a letter came to him out of nowhere. He looked at the content of the letter and was startled. He doesn't have time to care about this incident, and went to his personal residence and refused audience with anyone. He stealthily escaped from the mansion and went to a rundown inn and snuck into a room. Sam is sitting on the bed as he watched the Count slowly coming inside. The latter dressed in a very normal set of clothes. "Greetings, Sir Sam." The other party immediately greeted him. Sam has sent a letter with the seal provided by the Marquis himself. The seal has some spiritual energy signature which is identical to the Marquis' seal, so the Count never thought it was a duplicate. Sam gestured the other party to take a seat and said, "I am the one who dealt with the 2 officials. They're in connection with the arena, and that is the boss of the 2 big gangs. I don't know how much info you have on them, but take a look at this." Sam passed the monthly report on them, and the Count skimmed through the details, as his face paled with shock. "I don't know what you will do. I can deal with them myself, but I don't want to expend my energy, so I want you to deal with them as soon as possible, and most possibly tomorrow. Take this." Sam passed a spatial ring which is full of liquid that he made after mixing it with the drugs. "This is the toxin I created with their drugs as base. If you can make the Great Mage consume a large amount of this at the same time, you can deal with him easily." Sam explained. "Thank you, Sir Sam. I don't know how you got the information on this, but I will definitely deal with them as soon as possible. The Count replied. Don't be too quick to thank me yet. I have another which I didn't show you yet, and I am not interested in showing you this. The loot of all these people doesn't belong to you. But I will let you have all the loot except the novice peak and the great mage experts. And you don't have the permission to go through the lockers of the arena and the other organizations. I have Marquis' orders to take all of them back. That is the punishment for your negligence on this part. If the accounts don't tally with the report I have, all the officials can forego their titles and can prepare to serve their time in the prison. The Count's face turned red in embarrassment. He thought that he could hit it big from this loot and increase his contributions, but now, his plans are gone. He agreed with Sam and left the place. After that, a shadow mouse followed the Count to keep an eye on him, and another shadow mouse stood in front of Sam. Steal the spatial rings inside the locker as soon as the battle broke out and bring them here. The mouse nodded and followed the Count. Now 2 mice followed the mice, and one of them is to keep watch, and other one is to safely bring back the important loot from the locker. Even though the Count might not dare to go against the orders, Sam doesn't want to take the risk. If the meteorite sand and the millions of the spirit stones slip by just like that, he might not be able to get them back. Next day, something big will happen, but Sam didn't plan to rest tonight. Jack, we are leaving. Sam and Jack started walking. They went to one of the contact points of the snakehead. The other party is just a novice level 1. Both of them subdued and Sam fed them the liquid. Then he took out some powder of the drug pill and sprayed around. Both of them quickly left the dead body and went to another contact point. After dealing with several snakehead gang members, they changed their targets to the tigerfish members, but this time they didn't use poison, rather, they slit their throats. By midnight, the news passed over all the gang members. Some impulsive ones who lost their friends started fights with the opposite gang members. Before the matter reached the upper echelons, there were already casualties. By dawn, the fight surfaced to the public and still going on. The orders from the higher-ups aren't even effective anymore, as the fights went to personal level. The great mage in charge at Arena is frowning, and just as he wanted to forcefully suppress the war, a news brought him headache. The Count visited him and is requesting for audience, saying that there is a business deal. He cannot decline him and can only pray that it would be over fast. But when they sat down together, the Count took out some rare wine jars. And the other party was even considerate to prepare a whole wine jar for each, and the arena in charge wasn't even given a chance to reject it. But only after he emptied half of the wine, he felt that something is wrong. Before he could realize what is wrong, the Count attacked him on the spot. Soon a battle erupted there and the gang members flew in panic. The upper echelons of the Count mansion all swarmed into the arena headquarters and started attacking all of them. With so many peak stage and late stage experts, soon the arena was subdued. But nobody dared to take the loot. All of them only stood there as the subordinates collected the corpses. The city guards swarmed the city and started dealing with the gangsters. By the evening, the whole city undergone a crackdown and was cleaned of gangs. The remaining measly members who were lucky enough to survive immediately escaped from the city. Sam walked towards the pile of dead bodies along with Jasmine and Jack. They started collecting the spatial rings. The main 3 rings that are hidden in the locker are already in his hands, so he just took all the remaining scrolls and took them. After that, all of them went to the Count mansion and Sam said, "For Marquis' orders I have to bring all the loot from the gangs, but since all the officials and city guards work together to catch them, I will let you guys have the loot from all the small gangs and the small fries of the big 2 organizations. But there is one important thing that you guys have to take note of, and that is the information of us 3 involved in this matter, and even our arrival in this city has to be sealed." Speaking up to this point, he handed S.U meant with permission to maintain the confidentiality, and also an order to seal of the information. With this, you don't have any obligation to reveal the information unless the Marquis himself asks of it. I have all the records of your corruption. If my appearance of your leaks out and I found any evidence, no matter how minor it may be, pointing out to this city, I will hand over them to the Marquis. All the officials immediately became tensed. They didn't dare think that Sam is just bluffing after all. All the info on the 2 gang members are given to them by him. Even they who are living in the city for decades weren't able to get the info on the gangs, but Sam got it in a month, so they don't dare think that he wouldn't have any info on their activities. That day, Sam, Jack and Jasmine exited the Red Coral City and set forth to the next Count city, the Indigo Sea City. 5 days later, Sam entered the Indigo Sea City along with Jack and Jasmine. Just like before, he didn't keep a high profile. It has been only 1 month and 15 days since they started targeting the Count cities. There is still 4.5 months to deal with the remaining 2 cities. Sam is sitting in his room at the inn as he examined the new meteorite sand. This time there are 12 cubes of it, but the sand is not silver meteorite sand. This is gray meteorite sand, and it is not suitable for making sharp weapons. It is mostly used to make some blunt weapon like a hammer. It has high impact strength. for Sam's future plans where he wanted to get himself a highly functional production unit. This sand can be used to make the base of a machine or other rigid components. But he is kind of confused. He didn't understand why the black water is distributing different types of meteorite sands to different places, even though giving them as rewards is a generous thing. He still doesn't understand on what credentials they are giving off the reward, and the judging criterion to select the type of sand. But he didn't care for long. Whatever the other party's intentions are, they are benefiting him, but this gray meteorite sand isn't enough at all. He still needs a lot of it. Indigo Sea City is also a coastal region, and this city is very famous for venomous fish. The name of the city came from an indigo patch in the sea. That zone is called Indigo Zone, where the seawater is an indigo color. The water there is extremely dangerous, and the creatures are all venomous in nature. Nobody who ventured deep into the zone were able to come outside alive. The water itself makes people dizzy and unconscious easily. They had to create a barrier of spiritual energy around them, and that too will last long as the air inside the barrier will not be breathable after some time. Sam is very interested about the indigo patch. So, he actually left the most of the investigation to Jack and Shadow Mice. All he has to do is give the weekly reports of the investigation to Jack, and he can deal with the rest. After all, they can still use the Count and his forces. After the Shadow Mice is sure that there are no officials involved with the Blackwater branch or find out the involved officials, he can give a green light to the operation. There is still a lot of poison that he created with the drugs from the Red Coral City. Even if there is none of that poison, he can still make use of the venomous creatures in the indigo patch, and create a variant poison. Even though there might be antidotes for the poisons of the seaside creatures, he can still make use of them, and create a brand new complex poison, and use them against the gangs. So, he immediately left these things to Jack. Since the world is full of mysterious things, he wants to see if there is any opportunity in this place that will be of use to him. Every morning, Sam went to woods just like before and practiced. But this time, he is not practicing any combat. Instead, he is practicing the wind element. He wants to see if he can identify the gases and separate them. So, every morning, he is in the woods practicing his divine spirit soul cultivation, and afternoon tried to identify the gases, and he mostly tried to practice identifying the oxygen. Because the trees emit the oxygen and he is surrounded by the tress. If he divided the whole cultivation of divine spirit soul cultivation into levels, he is now at level 3, and he doesn't have access to further levels, and didn't know how many are there. Each and every level until now are unlocked with the improvement of the soul and spirit. At every evening, Sam started venturing into sea with some fishermen. Even though they don't venture deep into the indigo patch, they move at the outskirts of the indigo patch. Sam started observing the beasts at the outskirts of the indigo patch, and he observed one thing. These creatures are normal. They are mutated creatures. More accurately, they are basically not venomous, but they became like that because they were forced to adapt to the venomous environment created by the indigo patch. They evolved to defend themselves against the venom. Sam collected some water and took it back with him to check it out. That night after he returned to inn, he went inside the dimension and kept the water in front of Yanwu. Yanwu is from higher realms and might have seen many things. That is the reason Sam asked him if there is anything he can observe from the water. I cannot sense anything from the sample, but there is a minute familiarity from its smell. But I can't seem to identify it. When he heard these words from Yanwu, he became even more interested in the indigo patch. He cleared an area in the neutral zone of the dimension, and planted some basic herbs there, and some seeds of the herbs all of neutral type. He watered them with the indigo water and went out of the dimension. Days passed, without Sam's complete help in tactics. Jack is having a bit of hard time to plot against the big gangs. Even though he is getting the info required from Sam, he wasn't able to use the info efficiently to its maximum use. If he asked, Sam would help, but he himself wanted to test himself this one time. They still have a lot of time, so he is in no hurry. Sam continued on observing the effects on the seeds and herbs he planted. After some repeated usage of the indigo water, the herbs withered with a faint indigo shade on them. But Sam observed something different from the seeds. They germinated and the sprouts all have that faint indigo shade too, but they didn't seem to be withered, rather they are quite healthy. He didn't take them and let them grow. Every day, he made some experiments in the second floor simulative environment. Even though the replica of the indigo water was created and he performed the simulation on many animals, the results aren't that accurate as they kept on changing, and that is probably due to the insufficient analysis of the indigo water he had on his hand, and wasn't able to create a simulated replica of the indigo water. He didn't give up though. He started examining the creatures from the indigo patch, to compare them with their normal unmutated counterparts. Everything is going on. 1 month passed. Jack is starting to make preparations to make some big moves against the gangs, because Sam confirmed that there are no officials that are linked, and the situation of the gangs is similar to that of Falcon Cliff City. So, Jack is going to stir some shit up in between the gangs. At the same time, he informed the Count to take the actions immediately. On the day of action, Jack still didn't ask help from Sam, and the latter didn't volunteer. Since the former wanted to test himself, he will let him do it all the way. Sam went to the woods as usual. He felt like he is close to identify the oxygen and differentiate it. As long as he can identify the oxygen separately in a mixture of gases, his spiritual core ability manipulate can come into handy, and he can do as he pleases. Sam stood under a tree as he closed his eyes. He started concentrating as he simultaneously cultivated his mental energy. Hours passed. Sam could feel the air around him started to view itself in a different spectrum. He could see various gases with different densities. But he was still a bit away from exactly pinpointing the oxygen or any other gas. After a long time, finally he got an inkling. He could finally differentiate the gas coming from the leaf pores. But Sam didn't stop. He just went on with his cultivation. He stood there for more 1.5 days and finally opened his eyes. With his spiritual sense, he can finally differentiate the gases, but he couldn't identify all of them except oxygen. Sam opened his palm as he collected the condensed wind. Soon, the wind became so condensed that it became visible. But he is not done yet. He concentrated even more, and another small sphere of condensed wind was formed within the big sphere. Sam took out a small space jade, and he forcefully pushed through the large wind sphere, and started pushing the smaller wind sphere into the space jade. He is trying to store the pure oxygen inside the space jade. Because his next research is going to be done on the indigo sea patch, and he need to make a device that can make him breathe freely underwater. Because, from what Sam could guess, the main reason even the water-type elemental mages weren't able to explore the indigo sea fully is because, even if they can stay underwater for a few hours and take the water pressure, the indigo water isn't normal water, and it is fully contaminated. And it seemed there are no proper antidotes to get over the effects of the water fully. So, Sam is going to make a breathing equipment along with some diving equipment to venture deep into the indigo patch. Now, his immediate research direction will be making a diving equipment which will save his energy expenditure to avoid water touching his skin, and for that he has to find a resin or any alternative product to make the suit. He even has some ideas on how to move inside the water with less effort. So, Sam went back to the inn and holed up inside the library of the tower to find out if any tree or another resource is available to get him the required material. Sam holed himself up in the library as he browsed through the information on various trees that produce resins. The first thing he wanted to do is find a tree that is similar to rubber tree to make some form of material which will not allow the water to go through it. But he wasn't able to do so, because there are no records of those type of trees. To put it more bluntly, nobody ever bothered to make a record of these trees which they didn't know how to use. Then, Sam started thinking in another way. Beast organs. He went through the bestiary again, and started recalling all the characteristics of the beasts that were mentioned, and after more than 10 days inside the library, he found a possibility. That is to use the stomach sac of a bladed white shark. This is one of the beasts with strong stomachs that is both physically and against the corrosive and poisonous effects, and one more advantage is, there are mutated ones in the indigo patch, and he can just buy them off. Next day, Sam went to the Golden Horse Trading Company of the city. There as he requested he needed 20 bladed white sharks, and the only condition is that their stomachs shouldn't be injured. Within 2 days, Sam's order was ready. By this time, Jack is already done with his task and gave the loot to Sam, and they mainly consisted of the millions of spirit stones and the 14 cubes of gray meteorite sand. Even though Jack is a bit happy that he was able to complete, there are many hiccups, and he wasn't able to coordinate properly with the Count Mansion. When he asked Sam when they would move to the next city, he got a reply that Sam needs more time for research, so he easily complied. They are way ahead of their schedule, and he can use this time to catch up on his cultivation. Sam went to the second floor of the tower, and he stood at a table which has bladed white shark on it. This bladed white shark is one of the beasts which is thrice the size of a white shark in his previous life. Sam used a knife to cut open the shark and started taking the guts out, and after some cleaning, he finally had a big sack in his hands. This is the stomach of the shark. But this bladed white shark is mutated, and most of its organs including the stomach, is a bit indigo in color. Sam didn't make anything out of the stomach immediately. Instead he placed the stomach in a big glass container filled with the indigo water, and he also started increasing the water pressure with his wind ability. He just started compressing the water with his wind element. And just like that he is performing all kinds of tests on it, and the final one is a test on fire resistance, and Sam couldn't help but feel disappointed, but that didn't last long, because he has many different alternatives to make it work. Sam started working on a bodysuit. Since the stomach is elastic in nature, Sam had to use a small knife made of black meteorite sand to cut open it. This is the last product of the black meteorite sand he made, and he has nothing left of it now. At least he made the first stage of his claw weapon, so he isn't that worried. After all, he is getting his hands on the meteorite sand sooner or later. After working for more than 2 days, Sam finally made his suit. It even has a mask covering all his face except his nose, mouth and eyes. But he doesn't like the color of it, for which he couldn't do anything about. Now, he has to prepare the devices for his motion and breathing. He started taking all the ores he had, and started thinking on which is more suitable for him. Then the experiments began. Outside world, more than 1 week has passed and Jack didn't see Sam coming out of his room. Before going in, Sam said only thing, and that is not to disturb him no matter how many days he stays inside. But he couldn't help but worried. Even then he didn't dare to open the door on his own accord. And one more thing that is bothering him is that Jasmine started to become restless. Since she is just like a child, Jack didn't take any problem with her, but she is getting more and more anxious about Sam. He just hoped that Sam would come out as soon as possible. As if his prayers have been answered, Sam came out the very next day, and when he saw Jasmine, he didn't know what to do at all. She is just like a kid. She seemed to become extremely anxious and afraid as she didn't see Sam at all. If he left her and went on this sea expedition, he could imagine what could happen to her, so he has to make her feel less anxious. So, the next day Sam took her to woods and let Ape and the panthers out. He introduced them and kept her company for the whole day. Just like a kid, Jasmine isn't afraid of dangers or beasts, she is only afraid of loneliness. By evening, she is even running around with panthers and hugging the ape. The ape even gave her a piggyback, which she seemed to enjoy a lot. I am going to go out. I will be back soon. You stay with them. Jasmine nodded happily and informed the situation to Jack. Jack made a camp in the woods, so they can stay for a few more days. Sam went back to the inn to make some preparations. He needs to move just before dawn to avoid other cultivators who goes to the indigo patch. Sam made some final adjustments to the suit he made. Next day dawn. Sam entered the sea on his hoverboard, and as he moved towards the center of the patch, the more he felt that concentration of the contamination is high. When he almost reached the center, Sam took off his dress completely except for the underwear, and took out his suit. The suit is still an indigo color. It is so tight that he has to struggle a lot to get into the suit. The suit is completely tight and it is a bit translucent. One can even see the outline of his muscles over his suit. If not for the fact that he felt completely warm due to the suit, he almost felt naked. But there is something special about the suit, and there is a solid bump on the suit at certain places, and they are on his upper back of the forearms, calves. The bump is made of metal and is covered with a shark stomach. There are numerous holes of 1-inch diameter on the metallic bumps. All the bumps are made in such a way that they are in same shape as the muscle structure on the place they were set. They are specially made energy cells Sam made, and they are of wind element. The cylindrical holes are metallic tubes. He attached to the metallic frame that is attached to the energy cell. But they can't be seen clearly through the suit. After wearing the suit, Sam took out the mask he specially prepared. It is also the breathing equipment he specially made. The mask is a helmet type, where he has to wear it over his head. There is a glass section over his eyes in a groove which let it sit on the nose bridge. The borders of the glasses are embedded with small light energy cells. Below the nose bridge there are 2 pipes which will go into his nostrils, although not too deep, just enough to act like plugs, and these 2 pipes are connected to a space jade filled with oxygen. Below these 2 pipes, there is a single pipe which entered his mouth, and this is also not long at all, it just barely touched the tip of his tongue. This pipe is also connected to a space jade, but this one is empty, and it is to exhale the air out. Sam wore the mask and stored his hoverboard away, which made him fall into the indigo-colored sea. After he dived in, Sam started using the light energy cells and the light shot into the depths of sea. Even though he cannot see to far distance, he can still see his surroundings. Then dived a bit deeper and started activating his wind energy cells. He placed his hands backwards, and the wind with high pressure was being discharged from his pipes, giving him the thrust to move around in the water. Sam kept his head downwards and his feet up as he dived deeper and deeper. Around 30 minutes later, he is already hundreds of meters deep. Due to usage of energy cells, Sam didn't feel that tired, except he has to concentrate more, and as he moved deeper, there are less and less creatures he can see. The reason is the concentration of the toxicity is getting higher as he moved downwards. If Sam just used normal beast skin instead of the stomach sac of the shark, he would be in a big trouble, because the corrosion resistance of the shark stomach is not something to be scoffed at. After getting down for more than 1 hour, he estimated that he is more than 1,500 meters deep, and Sam found a rocky terrain on the seabed. He moved towards it and the place filled with rotten carcasses. Some of them are of water-bound creatures, and some of them are of humans. There are a lot of carcasses. Even the bones are corroded so much due to the toxins. Sam went deeper and deeper into the rocky terrain, and he only stopped when he found something weird. There was a large area with some concentrated energy, and when he used his observation, he wasn't able to understand what it really is. But when he moved towards it, he was able to sense that energy is distributed in that particular area, and it is making all the water repel from it. The pressure on him increased when he moved towards it, and he has to increase the thrust so much to go against it. If not for the fact that his body is physically as strong as a beast at the same level, he would have had his bones crushed under his pressure. He not only found that formation is quite high grade, but it is very much eroded completely, as if the energy source is completely depleted. Sam drifted towards the formation, but he wasn't able to enter easily. The formation is completely sealed, and even though there are some loopholes, Sam wasn't able to pinpoint them. The loopholes are small and sparse and didn't appear all the time, so he waited as he swam around the formation to find out if there is any way to go through it. After a long struggle, he finally found a loophole in the formation and slipped into it. Splash! The water level inside the formation is strangely not full. Sam fell into the knee-deep water as soon as he entered. At this moment, even his suit started having corrosive problems, and he immediately took out his hoverboard and started floating. Inside the formation it seemed like a room with hemispherical dome. It completely deterred the water from entering inside, and even the knee-deep water also came inside due to small loopholes, appearing for split seconds. But Sam's concentration isn't on the dome or the water, but on the skeleton right before him. The skeleton so massive that is not even as long as its claw. Sam felt so insignificant in front of the skeleton, but the massive size isn't the reason. The reason is the powerful aura that is coming out of the skeletal remains. Even though it is not giving him enough pressure to buckle him, he is still feeling insignificant. His bloodlines of Sky Sovereign Rock and Golden Sun Crow activated subconsciously to repel the pressure, and then only he felt relief. There are 9 snake-like heads to the massive figure, hind legs like dog and talons for front limbs, a deep body like a hound, and tail like a dragon. The bones have slight hint of purple on it. The skeleton is so majestic even in this state.